your faces. For real, right? Without a mask on. Thank you so much for coming tonight. How many of you have been to Alaska before? That's like 50% of you. Well, you really must have liked it. Oh, another 51, sorry. You really must have liked it. Oh, that's fantastic. How many of you saw whales when you were in Alaska last time? Just about the same amount of people. Okay. Anybody see eagles last time? Yeah. Okay. These are all things that those of you who haven't been can look forward to. How about dolphins? Did anybody see any wildlife tonight? Not in the bar, here on the ship. What did you see? You saw seals? What did you see? Jellyfish. Yeah. Good eye. They're small from way up top. Yeah, on the pier. Anybody else? Okay. Very good. Well, hang on because we're just getting started. There's a lot coming. Again, this is our first cruise. We're all so excited. This is my 9th season working in Alaska. I've guided tours up there. I'll tell you a little bit about myself actually in just a moment. But the crew is excited. The majority of them have not been to Alaska yet, so they're going to be just as bewildered as you are. A lot of our room stewards have never seen snow before, having been from Indonesia and India, places where it doesn't snow, right? So they're so excited too. This is my favorite cruise of the whole season because it's like Christmas. It's Christmas Eve. Tomorrow, it's a brand new day, and we're on our way to Alaska. Tomorrow night, we're going to get to Alaska. Right in the middle of the night, you'll feel a little bump. That's us going over the border. No, just kidding. We're gonna head into Alaska on Thursday morning, and oh my goodness, Thursday is going to be mind-blowing. I'm going to be telling you tonight a little Whitman sampler, so to speak, of everything we're going to be expecting in Alaska. Tomorrow morning at 9:15, I'll have a show all about fjords, glaciers, volcanoes, yes, volcanoes, and wildlife. So be sure to come back at 9:15 tomorrow. But tonight is a little overview of Alaska to get you ready for this trip, like you haven't been waiting long enough, right? So again, let me go ahead and get started. Everybody's just filing in here. So have a seat wherever you'd like. We are still got some people coming in. It's okay. It's like your living room. You can go and come as you please. All right. Well, my name is Nancy Caruso. I'm a marine biologist, and I'm your naturalist aboard the ship. This is what I look like because you can't really see me well from way back there. This is me up in Katmai National Park, enjoying the brown bears up there a couple years ago. Now, a naturalist is a term, it's actually a very old term for an expert of natural history. So I've essentially studied my whole life since I was 10 years old. I'll tell you that story tomorrow about natural history. By training, I'm a marine biologist. And at home, I run a nonprofit organization called Get Inspired. I'm just up here for a couple of weeks this year. I'm getting the ship set up for another naturalist who's coming up to take my place. When I'm not here, that's what I'm doing. I'm diving in the kelp forests of Southern California. I do species restoration. And I've spent the last 19 years of my life restoring the kelp forests of Southern California, restoring white sea bass, and restoring abalone. This is an abalone. I haven't quite gotten them restored yet, but I have about 10,000 of them growing right now. And my latest project is the Pismo clam. Essentially, all of these, we ate them all, and so I'm trying to bring them back. And I have a unique method for doing this. I use child labor. I go into schools and teach kids how to grow the species that I'm restoring. They grow them in their classrooms, and then I take them out with my volunteers and plant them in the ocean. I hear some of my students, and I do take students out diving too, but my students and volunteers working out in the field, growing them in the classrooms, diving. So on board this week, you're going to have an opportunity to hear my voice. If you're interested in wildlife, who here is interested in seeing nature and wildlife? Okay, just a few of you. That was basically everybody's hand. That's why you're here, right? If you're interested in seeing wildlife while you're in your cabin, leave channel 33 on because it's a picture of the bow. It was down this morning when we were getting on the ship, but it should be back online now. My voice will be transmitting over that channel on channel 33, so that if you have a balcony in your cabin, or even if you don't, if you're taking a nap, you'll hear, when I see something, you'll hear ding dong ding. There's whales on the starboard side. And I'll make the announcement so you can go outside and check it out, or run across the hall. Make friends with your neighbors across the hall so you can run over and see them from their balcony too. You can also watch this show on channel 16. So if you happen to sleep in tomorrow, because some of you may have come from a very long distance today, if you happen to sleep in tomorrow and miss my show at 9:15 on glaciers, volcanoes, and wildlife, you can tune into channel 16 and watch it. It'll be on all throughout the day. This show will be on as well. And then when I make announcements, I often use the clock system. So I'll use 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 8 o'clock. So it gives you an idea of where to look when you come running outside with your eyes sleepy. Where's the orcas? You can look to see where I was talking about. So let's start with a little fundamentals here. Can everybody, I know you just got on board, but can everybody point to the bow of the ship? I know it's tricky. It's that way. Okay, so that means the stern is that way. Now, this is the tricky part. I'm going to teach you port and starboard, because sometimes I'll say port or starboard, sometimes I'll say left or right, but sometimes I'll forget to say left or right with it. So port is going to be on your left-hand side, and the way you can remember that is port has 4 letters and left has 4 letters. Okay, got it? So that means starboard's on your right-hand side. So everybody, if I were to make an announcement to say there are 64 humpback whales on the starboard side at 3 o'clock, where would they be? Exactly. Right at the midship area, right in the middle of the ship, off to the right-hand side. Exactly. So now you're clued in, right? And the captain sometimes will use that too. We've got that down. My presentation tomorrow will be at 9:15, Glaciers, Volcanoes, and Wildlife, and then my last presentation will be on Monday. Hopefully after you've seen all the marine mammals in Alaska, I'll be talking about the whales of the Pacific Northwest. Whales alive. Now, let's get down to business. You've been planning this for a long time. I usually ask, do you know where Alaska is? But you have had a long time to figure that out, right? So where is Alaska on this map? Is everybody familiar with where we're going? It's right up there, okay? And we do have people from all over the world on this cruise, and Alaska isn't attached to the lower 48 states, so it's a little complicated for people who aren't really tuned into United States geography, because it's way up there. It's known as the Great Land. It's known to be an untouched wilderness. And as a biologist, when I came on board in 2011 for the first time as a guest, and I found out there was a naturalist on board. I was already a naturalist in Southern California and guiding tours, and I found out there was a naturalist on the ship. I followed her around like a puppy dog. And I have to tell you, in all of my years of studying nature, I never saw what I saw in Alaska. That Alaska exemplifies that all life is interdependent and ever-changing. And that's because there's nothing in the way of seeing that. It's wild and open land. It's bigger than 26 of our smallest states put together, and there's only 780,000 people in the entire state. There's a lot of land. There's not things in the way, like pesky highways and parking lots and shopping malls. So you can actually see things interconnected and how they work together. It's amazing. So I got to see this interdependence. And let me tell you, having this being my 9th season in Alaska, things are ever changing. I'll have some slides tomorrow to show you the retreating glaciers. I don't even know where it is this year. I haven't been there in a year and a half. I can't wait to see where the South Sawyer Glacier is this year. I hope maybe it grew a little bit last year while we weren't watching. We'll see it. Alaska is the land of opportunity. Many of you are here to check something off your bucket list. Raise your hand if that's you. Maybe it's just going on a cruise to Alaska. Check. How many are here to see glaciers? Yeah. How many are here to see wildlife? Most everybody. Yeah. Whatever it is, you can do it in Alaska. You can even go snorkeling in Alaska, diving in Alaska. Crazy. It's a little cold, so I hope you brought a dry suit. But you can do it. It's the land of recreation. You can go on a hike and no one will ever find you. It's enormous. Lots of open space. And for $7.2 million, or just 2 cents an acre, we got it from the Russians in 1867. They had no idea what they were giving us, and we had no idea what we were getting. It was an awesome deal. It was first the Department of Alaska, then the District of Alaska, then became the Alaskan Territory. And on January 3rd, 1959, it became our 49th state. The capital is Juneau, and we're going there. We're going to the capital city. And this is really the only way you can get there. Actually, there's 3 ways you can get to Juneau. There's no roads into Juneau. So the governor and the state assembly, when they go in and out, they have to take a boat. They can also fly out. And as they say in Juneau, the 3rd way to get into Juneau is by birth canal. That's it. Just those 3 ways. So, hello? Okay. This is the state of Alaska here. This giant, see, it is right next to Russia. This giant mass of land with all of these islands. And we're going to be right down here, in this little section down here, throughout our entire journey. This is known as the Alexander Archipelago of Islands. It's composed of 1,100 islands that we'll be cruising in and out of for the whole week. The Alexander Archipelago. Everything about Alaska is big. 33,000 miles of coastline, 19 peaks over 14,000 feet. 14,000 feet. 3 million lakes over 20 acres in size. It's home to home to half of the world's glaciers. And it has, of course, North America's largest, tallest peak, which is Mount Denali at 20,310 feet. It's 1/5 the size of the lower 48 states. It's the northern, eastern, and westernmost state. How is that, Nancy? How's that possible? The date line, right? It's on the other side of the date line, a portion of it. And is anyone from Texas? Yeah, Alaska's 2 times the size of Texas. I had to throw that in there. I have a lot of friends from Texas. And stunning, absolutely amazing landscapes, which is, I'm sure, why a lot of you are here. Here's our cruising route for the week. We're going to be in Tracy Arm Fjord on Thursday. All day tomorrow we'll be out in the open sea. Tomorrow evening, headed inside to start our journey on the Inside Passage. We'll be in Skagway, Alaska on Friday, Juneau, Alaska on Saturday, Ketchikan, Alaska on Sunday, and then Sea Day and arriving back in Seattle on Tuesday. So here's the general route, although my Skagway is getting cut off there at the top. We'll be outside, as I mentioned, pretty much all day tomorrow, and then we'll be heading inside tomorrow night up to Juneau, Skagway, and Ketchikan, back to Seattle. Now, you're probably wondering, I'm going to mention times to view wildlife along our cruise. Well, Thursday's going to be a really good day. We're actually going to be going way inside. Look at these tiny, they look like little rivers. We're going to be going way into there. See that big white thing? That's a glacier. We're going to be heading into these fjords on Thursday to hopefully see a glacier. I'll explain a little bit more about that tomorrow. The best days to see wildlife tomorrow. If you don't have binoculars, by the way, go get some in the Pixels Gallery. Everything's small. Everything's really small from the ship. So those will help you see. All day tomorrow will be an open ocean. So it's a gamble, right? Anything's possible. I've seen sperm whales, fin whales, orcas, dolphins, porpoise, sea lions, albatross tomorrow, black-legged albatross, lots of seabirds, auklets, guillemots. If you're a bird person, let me know. I'll let you know about the birds up here. But here's our best viewing times for wildlife. So tomorrow, keep your eye out. You can sit up on deck 9, eat ice cream, and eat pizza while you watch whales. That's not too bad. Watch out the windows up there. 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Thursday. Now, when we head into the fjords on Thursday morning from about 9 a.m. until 1, when we get here to the entrance of the fjord, that is a known whale feeding area. So from 9 a.m. until 1, when we get right there, you're going to want to be watching the water. We're going to be in between mountains in the inside passage. And then again, we'll pass through there on Saturday night when we leave Juneau. So you can take a picture of that if you want. I'll be repeating it again tomorrow and a little bit later tonight. This is where we're headed in Tracy Arm Fjord. Maybe. We haven't been there in a year and a half, so we don't know how much ice is in there. We've gone in many times where the ice is so thick we can't get to the glacier. Right now, actually, I don't know where the glacier is, but this picture was taken in 2009. A year and a half ago, last time I was here, the glacier was back here. So I don't know where it is now. I'm so excited to see. But we have to go around this corner now to see it. If there's a lot of ice, you know that story, right? Ice and big ships. Yeah, we don't really wrangle with that scenario. So if there's too much ice, we can't go to the glacier. We'll sit out away from it. We'll have had the 33-mile journey through the fjords. But there is a way to make sure you get to see the glacier. There's going to be 2 departures on that day. We're not going to a port, but there's 2 departures on that day on these little tiny 80-foot vessels. They look tiny because we're a giant ship. They're going to come alongside our ship, take about, I think, 150 people on each one. There's 4 of them, 2 coming in the morning, 2 coming in the afternoon, and they will traverse through the ice and get you up to the glacier. If that's your bucket list item, you're going to want to talk to Shore Excursions about that. There's the small little vessel up against the fjord, just to give you some idea of scale. And Jen's going to talk about it tonight in her presentation, so you'll learn a little bit more from her. I'll also mention it tomorrow. If you go on that small excursion vessel, you'll also see another glacier. So we're hoping to see North Sawyer Glacier from the ship. The smaller vessels will definitely get up there and then also go to see South Sawyer Glacier. Now, you keep hearing about this inside passage. That's where we're going. If you're like me and get seasick, it's wonderful because there's no waves in there. I did check with the bridge, and there's going to be pretty calm seas tomorrow. They said about 1 meter, which is, we're not going to feel anything. It's only waves about this tall. So it'll be pretty calm tomorrow. The inside passage, no waves at all, because that's what it looks like. We're going to be cruising in between those mountains. 14,000-foot peaks jutting out of the sea. Amazing. That's a ship in the inside passage, to give you some perspective. Again, the best viewing times for wildlife with your binoculars are going to give you the best opportunity, because that looks close, but it's 1.5 miles away from the ship. If you have binoculars, you can see the brown bears and the black bears on the shore. Without them, unfortunately, you can't. So if that's your bucket list item, make sure you either bring them, walk around the ship with them around your neck all day, or go get yourself a pair if you forgot them at home. So let's get your perspective right. Okay, our ship is 963 feet long, and it's 180 feet tall. So when you're looking at wildlife on the top deck, you're looking at a whale that's the size of a school bus from 180 feet off the surface of the water. Most people can't put together the idea that that's a whale when it looks like a dolphin, right? They're huge, but you're going to be really high up. So remember that. When you see ice calving off the glacier, it'll be the size of a Motel 6. But you're going to see what looks like an ice cube falling. Because, of course, we don't get close, right? Again, you know the story of the ice and the ship. Yeah. Okay. So I get asked this question all the time. Which side of the ship is the best side of the ship to see wildlife on? How many are on the port side? How many are on the starboard side? Everybody else has no idea. The best side of the ship is the outside of the ship to see the wildlife. Now, the dance club does get a little rowdy around 11 p.m. That's pretty wild. But if you want to see the wildlife, the ocean and the Alaskan wildlife, that's on the outside of the ship. So bundle up. Again, if you forgot your jacket, don't worry, we'll sell it to you. We've got a whole gift shop full of stuff. Bundle up and go outside on the open decks and watch for wildlife. Now, Alaska is huge, but it only has 5 highways. There's a lot of places you just can't drive to, including, this is where we're going. Remember, all down here? There's no roads down there. So there's only a couple of ways you could actually go visit these places. If you weren't on a cruise ship, I mentioned you could fly. And most of the locals use this. This is like the city bus. It's the Alaska Marine Highway Transportation System, started in 1957. If you live in Juneau and you want to go to Walmart, you got to take the ferry to Ketchikan. You stock up, bring it all back. It doesn't have as nice accommodations. This is your room with a balcony. You have to bring your own tent. And if you're lucky, you might get a comfy chaise lounge in the solarium. And they don't have 24-hour pizza and ice cream. I can guarantee you that. The other way to go is the float planes. And it's really interesting. If you're watching as we come out of Juneau on Saturday night, houses have float plane garages because that's the way you get around. This is the parking lot at Walmart. Now, Alaska is rich in cultural history, and I hope that you will take advantage of that. Those of you that are American citizens here, we don't really learn about Alaskan history, and you'll have a chance to learn while you're up here about the 15,000 years of Alaskan history that have preceded us being there. We're going to be visiting areas of Alaska with the Tsimshian, the Tlingit, and the Haida groups. They're Native Alaskans, and they're going to be sharing their culture with us while we're there. So it's a really great opportunity for us and visitors alike to learn about a different culture, which I always love to do when I travel. Alaska is rich in cultural history and also, of course, rich in resources. Now, the Russians started this kind of trade in Alaska when Vitus Bering started sending people over to, sending ships over to collect furs from the wealth of wildlife in Alaska. That started in the mid-1700s for seal pelts and bear pelts and wolf pelts, and of course the sea otter pelt, which is the densest fur of any animal on Earth. It has over 1 million hairs per square inch of its fur. 1 million. Just to give you some perspective, a German Shepherd has about 1,300 hairs per square inch. It's very, very dense. Sea otters never get out of the water. They live in 45-degree water. Tiny little creatures, the water never touches their skin because their fur is so dense. Hopefully we'll see some of those on Thursday morning. The gold boom, the resource of Alaska, which started in the 1890s. Very rich history. If you haven't read about the gold rush in Skagway that brought all the prospectors up there, it's an amazing American story, a story of hope. It was during a depression in the lower 48 states, and people from all walks of life, from every corner of America, went to Alaska. There was nothing there. There was no cruise ship to take them. It was a wild, wild trip. And many people got their start there. The Nordstrom brothers got their start repairing shoes on the Alaskan trails. Donald Trump's grandfather owned a couple of brothels and hotels, as well as some gold claims in Alaska during the gold rush. So if you get a chance, when you get off the ship in Skagway, you're going to be in Klondike Gold Rush National Historic Park. Amazing. So you'll step off the ship, go to the visitor center, take the free walking tours, and watch the movie. Everybody go watch the movie about the gold rush in the visitor center. It's free. And learn about this amazing part of American history. The salmon boom started in the 1890s. Amazing story. Luckily, we still have salmon. We almost lost them for a while. They figured out when you put nets across the rivers, you catch a lot, but you don't get any next year. So they figured that out in the early 1900s, and luckily, it's a very sustainable fishery now. The timber boom started in the 1950s, still going on today. The oil boom, of course, still going on today. The amazing architectural engineering feat, the Valdez pipeline, still in operation, and one of the most amazing things we've ever built on the planet, going up and over hills with thick crude oil. The crab boom started in the 1960s. Who's going for crab in Alaska? Anybody? Yeah, delicious. Juneau has amazing crab at Tracy's Crab Shack. You have to have some. Cruise ships started booming in the 1980s. Now, in 1895, a first-class round-trip ticket from San Francisco to Juneau was $52. So it's gone up a little bit since then. But people were going to visit Alaska as tourists to go see the glaciers in the middle of the 1800s. So it's not something that's new. It was a novelty then, just as it is now. We're still amazed by ice, except now we can make it, right? Then they didn't have the ability to push a button on the refrigerator and get any out of it. Alaska has some stereotypical males, right? This is what we think of when we think of Alaskan men. Kind of lumberjacky, very sturdy looking guys, often a flannel shirt involved. But Alaska also has some strong women, right? If you watch any of those reality shows on the Discovery Channel, you've got to be pretty tough to make it up there. Even if you're living in a city, it's pretty harsh. You got to be able to take care of things. So this is the champion Lumberjill up there on the left. We have Salmon Fleet fisherman captain there, Tommy Marsh. She's actually a pilot on board the ship as well. It comes on board occasionally. And amazing bush pilot. She's been piloting for the last 15 years. Let's talk about wildlife now. The animals of Alaska. There's 105 species of mammals, 430 species of fish, 300 bird species, 7 species of amphibians, and more insects than you could ever imagine. There's 41 species of mosquitoes. I've had some interesting bites. I never get these bites from the lower 48 states. The welts are amazing. And it is mosquito season. So if you're going away from the ocean, you're planning on taking a hike up through the forest, which I highly recommend, make sure you either wear long sleeves, although they've bitten me through my sleeves, or bring some mosquito spray with you, because they do like fresh blood, and that's you. No, so this is the Alaska state bird. I was kidding. This is the willow ptarmigan. There's one spot that cuts out right there. Okay, I'm not going to move. Let's talk about dogs. Anybody going to see the Alaskan Huskies? Oh, they're so cute. This is the Alaska Malamute. This is the state dog of Alaska. But the Alaskan Huskies that we all know about from pulling dog sleds are actually mutts. They're all interbred animals that people are working on to raise, to race in the Iditarod. Dog sledding is a cultural it's a cultural tradition in Alaska. It's what was used to travel across frozen lakes and frozen rivers in the middle of the winter when everything was solid. And the Iditarod is an 1,100-mile race that happens every year if there's snow in June or in Anchorage. from Anchorage to Nome that retraces an amazing story of mushers who made the journey in the middle of winter when there was no light in minus 70-degree Fahrenheit temperatures to take a serum to save a village in Nome from diphtheria so that everybody can get inoculated. And they only lost about 5 people because these brave mushers went for 72 hours straight to get it there. Kept it close to their chest so it wouldn't freeze on the way. So dog sledding is the state sport of Alaska. Let's talk about forest animals, my favorite. The slug. Not just any slug. The banana slug is a giant slug. Yeah. So if you're going into the forest, turn over some logs, look for the banana slug. The city of Ketchikan takes their slugs very seriously. They have slug races every year. They have slug parades every year. The slugs are a really important part of Alaskan forest fauna. We're looking for Sitka deer, small deer, not as big as our black-tailed deer or mule deers in the lower 48. But I'm going to share with you a little tidbit. These animals that we really want to see, like bear and moose and deer. Of course, we're scanning the shorelines with our binoculars, but you can also find them in the ocean. I know that's weird. But they swim from island to island, right? There's 1,100 islands in Southeast Alaska. So if you run out of food on one, you just swim to another one. So don't be surprised to see a rack of moose antlers going across the surface of the water. It's something to see, believe me. Wolves, anybody like to see a wolf? Yeah, gotta have binoculars. Watching for movement on the shores. Let me give you a little tip if you're interested in watching wildlife. Seek out somebody with a camouflage hat on or camouflage vest. That guy's a hunter, and he's got good eyes because they train for this stuff. So you want to sit next to him on deck 9, or her. She may be wearing camouflage as well. Who wants to see brown bears? Now, what is a brown bear? A brown bear is not a black bear. That's correct. A brown bear is a grizzly bear that lives on the coast. So if they live in the interior of Alaska, they call them grizzlies. If they live on the coast, they're called brown bears. And the reason they make that distinction is because brown bears are 900 pounds larger than grizzly bears. And why is that? They eat salmon. Yeah. They don't eat berries. No, they eat that's protein, man. That's bodybuilding food. So they are huge. Here's a black bear. Now, that seems very easy to remember, right? Well, let me give you a few more clues. Black bears can climb trees. Brown bears do not. Brown bears knock them down. Okay? These are all black bears. So you have a white variant. You have black, cinnamon, brown variants of black bears. So just because it's black doesn't necessarily mean it's a black bear. There could be brown ones as well. And I've seen brown black bears. This one here, the white brown black bear, it's called the spirit bear. The highest concentration of those lives right where we're passing soon on Vancouver Island. All right, which one is this? Black bear, because it's in a tree, right. All right, another little helpful hint. Grizzly bear, black bear, you're looking for this telltale hump on the back. That's going to help you a lot. And brown bears have cuter butts. That's how you can tell. And if all else fails, check their back teeth, because the brown bears have more. Okay. All right, we're looking for bald eagles. I heard somebody say they've seen some already. Yep, they're down here in Washington too, but you should see them all throughout our cruise, right? Especially in the fjord, all day Thursday morning. They'll be out hunting. So keep an eye out for the bald eagles. Now, they don't always have that white head, which makes them trickier to find. When they're young, less than 5 years old, they kind of look like a golden eagle. They just have the brown feathers. So they are fledging right now. They were born in May and June. They're just coming out of the nests. So we may see some kind of with this mottled brown and white feathered patterns on them. But they're this tall. So when you see a bald eagle flying, you'll know it's the biggest bird out there. So when they reach 5 years old, they get that white feathered head. 7.5-foot wingspan. And notice the slats at the end of the feathers. That's another good way to tell them apart. Got those binoculars honed in on the feathers. Let's talk about marine mammals. We're going to see a lot of those on our trip. Now, do you know the difference between seals and sea lions? Okay, we're looking at seals and sea lions here. One, you're going to see seals on the icebergs. If you missed the beginning, yeah, we're going to have icebergs. There'll be ice around the ship on Thursday. You'll see seals on the icebergs. You'll see sea lions sitting on rocks, and that's because they weigh 1,500 pounds. They'll sink the ice. No, they're very big. Stellar sea lions is what we're going to be looking at. And the difference is, notice the way they sit. The poor harbor seal is like an ocean sausage. That's really all he can do, poor thing. He scoots around like an inchworm. The sea lions sit up. Sea lions. Okay, there we go. The sea lions sit up tall like this. They can actually run on their flippers, and they have ears. See the little Shrek ears there? The seals don't have any ears, and they're always laying on their side like a sausage. Whoop. Sorry about that. We're looking for orcas. Who'd like to see one of those? Yeah. They come and go very quickly. So we'll see humpback whales maybe feeding for a minute, maybe 15 minutes alongside the ship. When orcas show up, they're gone very quickly, a minute or two. That's all you got. So if you're not watching for them, you'll probably miss them. The orcas are actually dolphins, believe it or not. They're not whales. They're called killer whales because they eat whales, but they're not whales. We're going to see humpback whales. These are the size of a school bus, 35, 40 feet long. They're headed to Alaska, feeding in Alaska for the summer. They've spent their winter down in Hawaii and Mexico, giving birth and mating, and they're bringing their calves up to the rich feeding grounds of British Columbia and Alaska and Southeast Alaska to feed. And we're going through some known feeding grounds. So in the morning, from about 9 a.m. till 1 p.m., we'll be going through the feeding grounds of the of the humpback whales. So be sure you're out there watching. If you have that on your bucket list and you need to definitely see whales, you'll probably want to book a whale watching trip in Juneau. It's the whale watching capital of Southeast Alaska. And they have guarantees for seeing whales. So if you don't see one, I think you get a $100 refund on your ticket. So check the shore excursions, make sure yours has a guarantee. But I think all of them do. I was reading it the other night. But they'll definitely be there feeding. And that's a whale's head, by the way, coming up out of the water, full of krill. There's one of the whale watching boats catching a glimpse of the orcas. Another wonderful animal of Southeast Alaska is the salmon. Such an important part of Alaska's ecosystem. The salmon actually, of course, go out to sea. They feed for 3 to 5 years, and they come back to the rivers where they were born. We know that story. But let me just share with you some things about the salmon, how important they are to their ecosystem and their economics. Salmon support 1 in 10 jobs in Alaska, estimated to be worth over $980 million just in Southeast Alaska. 90% of households eat salmon, about 75 pounds per year. The average American eats about 16 pounds of seafood a year, so they eat a lot of salmon in Alaska. And of course, it's a haven for recreational fishers. 120,000 people per year go up there to catch salmon. It is a destination for fishing. And it's so important to the ecosystem. that as those salmon return from feeding in the giant Pacific Ocean, collecting all of those rich nutrients from the Pacific Ocean and swim upstream. Now remember, the streams they're swimming up are glacial-fed rivers. Now, there's no nutrients in glacier water. It's just pure water. So what do those babies eat when they hatch? There's no phytoplankton, there's no zooplankton, there's no minerals in that water for anything else to grow. It's the parents that give their lives and die in those streams once they lay their eggs that fertilizes the water to allow the plankton to grow to feed the next generation of salmon. And then, when those salmon die, 50 different species of animals consume that salmon in Alaska, from bears to eagles to ravens, wolves, mink, otter, sea lions, seals. And when that bear goes down and drags a salmon out of the stream to eat, there's so many of them, they're so smart, they don't waste any time filleting it. They eat the most caloric part of the salmon, which is the eyeballs, and the guts, the eggs in the females. They just take a bite out of the stomach, they take a bite out of the head, and then they go get another one. And while he's gone collecting another salmon, the eagle will come and drag that salmon away from the shore. He's not stupid, he's not going to get eaten by a bear, so he drags it further away from the shore and picks at it. And when he leaves it, who's going to eat it? A wolf, a mink, a raven. And eventually, as it's dragged into the forest, it's left as a carcass on the forest floor. There's salmon in the trees, ladies and gentlemen. That salmon produces fertilizer for the trees of Alaska, because 10,000 years ago, there was not any soil in Alaska yet. The landscape was covered with ice. And when the ice melted, there was nothing but rock. So where does this giant forest of 300-year-old trees come from? From salmon and another species that help make the soil. Now, we're going to be going into a forest on our ship, believe it or not. We're going through a fjord on Thursday. We're going to retrace the route of a melting glacier. So when we arrive at the entrance to the fjord, which is where the glacier ended about 1,500 years ago, we'll cross the moraine of the glacier, the old glacier, and travel through a giant fjord, which I'll explain all about fjords tomorrow. But we will follow and see the succession of the forest. So at the beginning of the fjord, there's this tall, mature forest. And as we go through the fjord, all the way up to the glacier, the trees get smaller and smaller and smaller until we reach the area where there aren't trees, there's just small bushes. And then as we get all the way up to the ice, there's nothing, because the ice just melted and there's nothing but rock. So there hasn't been time for a forest to grow yet. We're going to be traveling in the Tongass National Forest for the entire cruise. Right now, we're in the world's largest rainforest. It connects from British Columbia into the Tongass National Forest. It's 17 million acres of forest, and 90% of it is public land. Yay, we own it. It gets over 200 inches of rain per year, so hope you brought a raincoat. But if you didn't, we'll sell it to you. That's right. Hopefully you'll go for a hike in the forest. Every single port that we stop in is next to a mountain. You literally will look out your window and see a mountain. So in one port, you could throw a penny at it. It's so close. But they'll be right next to us within a quarter mile at the furthest. So go for a walk in the forest. This color makes us... Did you know that the color green stimulates our brain? Being in the forest makes us happy. You're going to be in the Klondike Gold Rush National Historic Park. Go to the visitor center, get some of the hiking trail maps. Go for a hike. Don't go up and over the Chilkoot Mountain. That's what they did. But you can go through the forest. Now, I told you there's another species besides the salmon that's responsible for the soil, and it's this one. This is actually my favorite organism in Alaska. This is The lichen. Why did the fungus marry the algae? He took a lichen to her. Lichen looks like dried paint. All right, you've seen it wherever you live. It grows on the sides of rocks, and it looks like paint that's dried up. Well, there's 460 species of lichen in Skagway, Alaska. That means the air quality there is really good because lichen likes clean air. This is a picture of that topsoil I mentioned. It's only 10 inches deep. So if you go down 10 inches, you're going to hit the rock that the ice was on 10,000 years ago because there hasn't been enough time for soil to build up on it yet. That lichen breaks down rock. It grows on the rock and breaks it down into its elemental minerals. So with the lichen and the salmon together, they're creating the soil and the fertilizer that grows the old growth forests of Alaska. Amazing. So as you can imagine, these 200-foot tall trees only have 12 inches of roots. So big windstorm comes through. Well, they don't worry about fires in Southeast Alaska. It rains too much. But we lose forests because of wind. So you have a whole stand of trees laying down because of a big windstorm that came through. This lichen is called old man's beard. Only grows in pristine air. We have none of this where I live in Los Angeles. And I'm not sure why they call it old man's beard, but it's awesome. When you see it, take deep breaths. All right, let's talk about weather. The weather can change dramatically in Alaska. Now, I've checked the forecast twice in 2 days, and it's different each time I check it. As of yesterday, it was supposed to rain. Today, it says it's not going to rain. So who knows what it's going to be when we get there, but I'll be prepared. I know that. It does snow. It should not snow while we're there at sea level. It starts snowing in September. Fall begins in August. Winter kind of starts at the end of September, early October. And it does snow a lot, actually, in Alaska. But I want you to be prepared. So when I leave the ship, I take zip-off pants so I can have shorts and pants. I take a raincoat, and I take a cover from my backpack in case it starts pouring down rain. I got on good walking shoes, water, and a couple of Cliff Bars so I can feed myself if I get in a pinch. So this time of year, I'll also have mosquito spray from going into the forest. If you're staying at the ocean, you're fine. They don't like salt water. They like fresh water. So just be prepared when you go out because this is 12 p.m. and that's 3 p.m. So it's raining underneath those clouds. Let's talk about water everywhere. I live in Southern California, so it's a great relief to come to Alaska. We don't have any, and they have a lot. They have half the world's glaciers in Alaska. Water is shaping the landscape of Alaska continuously. We'll see it in every part of its cycle in Alaska. You remember this? There's some children in here. You probably remember the water cycle, right? Water, this is all the water we have on the planet is all the water we've ever had. We don't get new shipments from space, right? It's always been here. It's always going to be here. It goes through these different phases: evaporation, condensation, precipitation. It might go underground, but it's going to come back up to the surface, and we'll use it in another form another day. So those glaciers that you see calving into the ocean, that calving ice that's falling into the ocean, fell as snow when Christopher Columbus was coming to America. That was part of the water cycle, right? It fell at the top of the mountains. It's flowed down the mountain in glacial form. It's now falling into the ocean. Now think about this, especially you kids. That means that dinosaurs drank water, peed, and we're drinking dinosaur pee, right? Yeah, that's what that means. Water is not wasted. It's for me to stand here. Okay, we'll try this spot now. Ice, that's what we're all here for. We want to see ice. We're going to see it, hopefully, in a fjord. Not a fjord, a fjord. You can correct everyone in the elevator. when they say it wrong. That's a fjord. There's a little giant 900-foot ship down there. That's a fjord with a ship in the bottom of it. That's a fjord with a ship and a helicopter in it. We're going to talk all about fjords tomorrow morning at 9:15, so make sure you're in here to watch the show. Ice. Who's going walking on a glacier? Yes, so awesome. Here's a tip. Don't tell them I told you. Take a cup so that you can drink the glacial ice water. Pre-industrial revolution rain. Yeah, that's clean water. Take a cup so you can drink it. Bring a bottle with you, and you can fill it up and drink glacial water on the ship. You don't have to pay for glacial water on the ship. Okay, so amazing. You're going to go see it up close and personal. That's me climbing a glacier a couple years ago. There's a glacial trek, actually, they're offering this year. That's the trip that I went on. Amazing. That's hard. I don't know how those guys did it. Mount Everest, for heaven's sakes. I went about 20 feet. I was out of breath. Whoops, what's that? Uh-oh. That's not good. What just happened? Okay, that's better. Good. We're going to Juneau, all of us. And when you get to Juneau, there's a glacier that actually you can drive to, step off the bus, and see it. It's right there. So this is the visitor center at the Mendenhall Glacier. It's part of the National Forest Service, another place to go to a visitor center and learn about a fantastic ecosystem. The glacier has receded another, well, it's way up here now. This picture was taken a while ago, but it's up here now. But it's still there, so you can go to the visitor center and check out the glacier. This one is not a tidewater glacier, which means it doesn't calve into the ocean. As it melts, it makes a lake in front of it. Why is glacial ice blue? Oh, we're going to see some really blue ice on Thursday, but I'm not going to tell you until tomorrow. So make sure you come to the show tomorrow. All right, again, we're going to talk about getting you ready for possibilities. Binoculars are going to make you ready for the possibilities of seeing wildlife. This will definitely make sure you're ready for possibilities. Anybody bring one of those? Okay, good. The guy with the white shirt on, follow him around. Easy to spot. Yeah, he's got this big thing. So I want to stand next to you tomorrow. Okay, so which side of the ship will all the wildlife be on? The outside, very good. Now let's talk about some realistic expectations. Anybody come to Alaska to see penguins? Don't raise your hand. Good. Yeah, don't do that. Okay, good. Nobody. That's good because the penguins live in the southern hemisphere, not in the northern hemisphere. So that's good. What about polar bears? Yes, they do live up here, but we're not going that far north. Well, they're coming south, actually. So maybe one day we'll see a polar bear on the Alaskan cruise. But they live a little bit further north towards the Arctic. So these are all questions that I get asked. So we're making sure I cover all the bases. What about this guy? Again, a little too far north, Santa Claus. We're not heading to the North Pole. Now, what about these? Who wants to see the Northern Lights? Yeah, well, actually, all you need for the Northern Lights are clear skies, darkness, and solar activity. Darkness is hard to come by right now. So there are Northern Lights going on, we just can't see them. What I tell guests, because there's only a couple hours of darkness right now. It's really civil twilight for most of the night. Probably like from 2 to 4 is when it's dark outside. 4 o'clock in the morning, the sun is already starting to come up. There is a website, actually, that you can check, take a photo of this, because this is the Aurora forecast. It forecasts the Northern Lights. And it's available from the Geophysical Institute of Alaska, which is in Fairbanks. And they'll tell you your chances of seeing the Northern Lights and where in latitude you have to be to see. So here's what that page looks like when you pull it up. I checked it for this week, and unfortunately, as you can see on the index up there, it's a 2. It's a 2 on the scale of 1 to 9, being 9 being, oh my goodness, you can see them in California, and 1 being there's no solar activity whatsoever. So unfortunately, it's not really a good forecast for this week. It's a 2, which means that if there was darkness, which there is not right up here right now, you would see it in the Arctic, but it's not dark up there. So it's very difficult to see the northern lights when it's not dark outside. So you'll have to come back. We'd love to have you. So there's an up-close view of what that looks like, just so you can see the darker the green is the best chance of seeing it, and that's way north of where we're going to be. So, in summary, I just gave you a ton of information, right? If you haven't already picked your excursions, you've got a lot of work to do. You just traveled so far to get here. So everybody take a deep breath and relax. We've got a long cruise of relaxation ahead of us. We're going to enjoy the colors of Alaska because everything's in bloom right now. We're going to have an adventure in Alaska because that's what you do. That's what you do in Alaska. We're going to make new friends in Alaska and have a blast in Alaska. So, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow at 9:15, I will have another show on glaciers, volcanoes, and wildlife. If you have any questions that you would like to ask me, I'd be happy to talk to you outside the theater, right here on this side of the theater, right outside the doors on the stairs out there. But I'd like to thank you for coming to the show this evening, and I'll see you all in the morning. Enjoy the evening. By the way, the sunset tonight is not till like 10 o'clock, so you can go outside and watch for wildlife all evening long. Have a good evening, everyone.